But thanks to Professor Roger Corder's book, The Wine Diet, we are no longer in the dark. His research has led him to believe that drinking moderate amounts of certain red wines daily could be much better for us than popping pills. I spoke to him early today about his findings.
My interest started in the late 90s when it was quite clear that from a number of studies of populations that somebody drinking between 2 and 4 glasses of wine per day would often have a 50% lower risk of heart disease than a non-drinker. So we really need to get to the bottom of what that was. So we started researching the components of wine, and we did that by a simple purification process that we would isolate individual molecules, which are called polyphenols. We would test them on blood vessel cell function, and through that we could work out precisely what the components were in red wine that were important for protecting blood vessels from heart disease.
So how did you go about identifying what wines were in fact the healthiest for us?
Our approach for this was to actually look at longevity and see whether areas of higher longevity had a type of wine that was different from elsewhere. Now within France you've got this huge regional variation in heart disease, and there's also a marked regional variation in the lifespan of people. And we did analysis that looked at the heart disease levels in different areas and of the number of 75-year-old men in different areas. And it pinpointed Gers in southwest France as the area with the highest longevity and one of the lowest levels of heart disease in France. What we found in that area was that unusual grape was being used called the Tannat grape. And this makes a much more tannic wine, richer in our protective chemicals which we'd identified as procyanidins. And this wine seemed pretty unique in terms of its protective properties versus other wines across France.
Now, from what I understand about procyanidins is that basically they help to stop plaque forming in our arteries.
Procyanidins, which are these potent polyphenols which come from grape seeds, change the function of the cells that line blood vessels in a way that slows heart disease or even reduces it completely in some individuals, depending on the level of consumption. It's a fascinating process. We see all sorts of protective changes which reduce inflammation, which reduce the likelihood of blood clotting, all sorts of things that will be helpful in reducing the likelihood of a heart attack or a stroke.
Roger, in your book, The Wine Diet, wonderful title by the way, you also point out that procyanidins are in other foods that we eat.
Procyanidins are actually fairly common overall, but it's very easy to have a diet which would be low in them. So for instance, dark chocolate is a rich source of procyanidins. Apples are a fairly rich source, and so the idea that you eat an apple a day keeps the doctor away might actually have some basis in terms of giving you about a glass worth of procyanidins as an alternative source. But then when you look at apple juice, often it's filtered to remove all the protective polyphenols so that it's clear and it has a long shelf life. So, it highlights some of our current practices, maybe removing components from foods that are really important in protecting our health.
Professor Roger Corder, and the group of wines he identified as being best for your heart are indeed from southwest France. Madiran wines contain the highest amount of those all-important procyanidins, and they are available here in New Zealand. You can check our website for details.